Okay, now we've actually moved to the step of actually building a GPT from scratch, essentially. And the first step, building a GPT, and the first step is preparing the data set, right? And so in the previous video, obviously, in the NLP example, obviously I mentioned, the idea of taking strings, taking text and converting that to a number, right? And then, that number then could be inputted into the model and then, right? But in terms of preparing a data set for a GPT, how it works with a GPT is it runs on this thing known as self-supervised learning, right? Self-supervised learning. And this essentially just means when we provide it like the input data from our data set, we don't need to explicitly have a human label it, right? And so it's like the data can almost be labeled on its own. And here is the logic for how it works. If we have, a sentence, I like cats, right? So LLMs, I guess for a broad overview, are like these autoregressive models where they're like a next text predictor, right? So basically you've trained enough where, in the context of, this sentence, if I give it the word I, then it knows that I like, then it knows that like comes next. And then, if I say I like, then it knows that cats come next, right? And so in terms of how do we actually turn the data set into, how do we turn it into an input data set of of integers that the model can understand and then manipulate and also label it, right? And in self-supervised learning, and in this case with our GPT, it's actually pretty simple. The way we do it is conceptually first, I guess, we would take a sentence like this, like I like cats, and we would just shift it, right? So we give it a bunch of these sentences, and then we would shift it one to the right. So like, if we had a bigger sentence, if it was like, let's say it was like I like cats and dogs as our input, then the label would just be the exact same sentence, just shifted one to the right. So we would get rid of like we would just shift it one to the right. And so then, like given the input and then you given your label, the label has, since it's shifted, it has what comes next. And that's how you train your data set, right? That's how you train on your data set. You give it an input and then you give it a label. And in terms of actually preparing that, how you would do it is you would make like two lists or arrays. You would make like one for like, let's call it X, it would just be your input, and then Y would just be like your label, right? And then you would tokenize your raw data set. You would tokenize and make it indices, so you convert it basically to integers. Sorry, my pen's not good. To integers, and then you loop through all the indices, and then you just append to both our list X and Y. The only difference is for Y, you append the exact same like the indices, but just one shifted to the right. And so therefore you have your input data set, and it's structured in integers. It's tokenized such that the model can read it, but then you've also got your labeled data, which is just shifted, and it allows you to tell the model what's right. And so you can actually start training the model on your inputted data set.